Hello everybody. Yo yo yo. What's good? How you doing, people? So tonight's main event on Showtime, it's the Lightweight-unification between IBF lightweight champion Robert Easter Jr. and WBC lightweight champion MIKEY GARCIA. That should be a good fight. Very interesting fight. People are underestimating Robert Easter a little bit in this fight. Although, based on MIKEY GARCIA's talents, maybe it's not underestimation, you know what I mean? Maybe it's just accurately rating MIKEY GARCIA. But Robert Easter, man, I'd actually make a case that he's the more experienced lightweight, you know? In recent years, maybe he has faced the tougher opposition. But let's look into it. Yeah, Robert Easter, man, the first time that I seen him against like a somewhat against a quality guy, you know, Janice Mendes, former world champion, you know. And at the time, Robert Easter, when he fought Janice Mendes, I don't know if Janice Mendes necessarily was over the hill, but he has had like some hiccups, you know. He had that knockout loss to Rance Barthélemy that was overturned, and then he got outboxed over the distance by Rances. So he was coming off some adversity in his career, right? You know, a little bit of a slump. And Robert Easter, you know, 6-foot guy, man, was kind of hyped. Like every time a taller fighter at the lighter weight classes, you know, especially black fighter, comparisons to Thomas Hearns will come up. They were comparing Easter to Hearns, and actually stopped Mendes, man, with a big right hand, I believe. That's really the last time that, or one of the last times that his power was really in full effect, I feel like. Maybe with a step up in competition, a little bit of that hyped power was, I don't know, wasn't showing his effect as much, you know. Although I said like Janice Mendes is over the hill after those losses, man, he did beat Miguel Vasquez before fighting Easter. Miguel Vasquez, one of the biggest spoilers, you know, in boxing. There are certain fighters in the sport, you know, that have a style that maybe not the most entertaining, but there's a lot of skill to what they do, you know. Take the whole fight out of the fight, just stifle their way to decisions. Usually these fighters lack a little bit of punching power and have to rely on their boxing savvy, or veteran savvy, you know, tricks of the trade. Miguel Vasquez is one of those dudes. And even before that, Vasquez hadn't lost, I believe. Alright, there was this Mickey Bay loss that I don't think, I mean, a lot of people thought that was a Vasquez win, and he lost his title to Bay. But for a long time, he wasn't getting beat, you know what I mean? The last time he got beat before that was like in 2008 against Canelo. Yeah, man, Miguel Vasquez fought Canelo, lightweight, that's right. Yeah, maybe that, you know, puts a little bit more credit on that Mendes win by Easter. Mendes wasn't as shot as you would think. And then he fights Richard Comey to win his IBF title. I believe there was a vacant title that these two fighters were fighting for. And Comey, although very promising, he's a Ghanaian talent, you know, Ghanaian contender. At the time he hadn't fought or beaten anybody of quality. But in the end he proved his worth in the bout against Easter, credit to both for a great fight, a very competitive fight with knockdowns on... Oh, actually there wasn't a knockdown, man. I believe Easter got knocked down when his glove touched the canvas. And the middle rounds, and in the last round Easter had Comey almost on the floor. It's crazy how he was able to stay on his feet, you know. He went into a deep crouch. Yeah, that was crazy. Yeah, man, very entertaining fight. Both fighters overcoming adversity, and very close fight, split decision. But Easter won that shit, you know what I mean? I'm not mad at the decision necessarily, but very competitive fight. Even in that fight you could see like Easter is not the usual rangy long fighter, you know what I mean, with good punching power. He'll get down and dirty, enter the pocket and try to work you over. And he can do that, you know what I mean? He has good body punching, but especially for a tall fighter. But always when we say that, look at these dudes, Riddick Bowe, Diego Corrales, Paul Williams. These dudes, man, they being one of the better inside fighters, although tall. That shit does come with a receipt in form of brain damage. I mean, giving up your height. At least, like, if you're gonna do that like overtime, man, that's not a good remedy for having a long career. Anyway, he won his title, Easter did, and then he fought Luis Cruz. Is Cruz really a good fighter? Should this fight have gone the distance? I don't know. When I think back to watching that fight, man, it's a little cloudy, but I feel like this guy Cruz was giving Easter a little bit of trouble, you know? Maybe not being competitive on the scorecards, but hanging around and longer than he should. I believe like Easter scored 3 knockdowns in the fight. I don't know if this fight should have gone the distance, you know. But you never know what these fighters go through, or why they have off performances. So it's easy once again to be all judgmental from the couch. But Luis Cruz, I believe he had a draw with Ivan Redkach. Before that had a knockout loss to Edna Cherry. Decision loss to Juan Carlos Burgos, a former foe of Mikey Garcia's. You know, journeyman type, I'd say. So Easter goes the distance with Cruz, and then he fights Denis Shafikov. And Shafikov, man, I've been high on, you know. I like that guy, Shafikov. He's a good proven fighter, Denis Shafikov. Aggressive southpaw, but he's tricky at the same time, you know. He's not just a brute. I remember watching him fight this guy Nugaev. He TKO'd that guy, man, and I believe that they were hyping actually that guy Nugaev on ESPN. I remember Teddy Atlas was calling that fight. I don't know if it was an upset, but Shafikov put a beating on that guy, you know what I mean? He does his best work on the inside, Shafikov, I believe. Closer, you know, to his man. Although very aggressive, man, he's good with his defense. He knows what he does in the distance he works in, you know what I mean? And most of the time, the fighters he's fighting, they don't, you know? They're kind of overwhelmed. Yeah, I remember watching him fight this guy Nugaev. He TKO'd that guy. Then he also gave like trouble to then IBF champion Rances Barthélemy. Yeah, man, I love that fight. That was a very entertaining fight, I believe. Rances, kind of with his boxing in the later rounds, kind of regained the control of the fight, but it seemed like in the early and the mid rounds, Shafikov was pulling him into a toe-to-toe war, and Barthélemy wasn't getting the better of the exchanges. I like Barthélemy, you know, especially at lightweight. I don't know, like at junior welterweight, he's taken a couple of beatings. Maybe that's a case of like styles. I'm kind of blanking on the name, but the dude has beaten Barthélemy twice now. So Barthélemy is also not the most active fighter, so rust and age and whatever, you know what I mean, inactivity, all that can play a part in his decline. But I was really high on Barthélemy when he was fighting the likes of Shafikov. I would have liked to see actually Barthélemy fight Mikey Garcia a couple of years ago, when Mikey was actually still kinda on hiatus. Anyway, Shafikov gave trouble to Bartholomew, but he obviously lost a close fight, and he rebounded from that Shafikov by beating the brakes of former Olympian Jamal Herring. I believe he was like the Olympian captain or something. I don't know if his pro career has been as fruitful, but he definitely wasn't ready for Shafikov, and Shafikov took full advantage of Herring. A one-sided beating that gets stopped in the last round when it probably should have been stopped like 4 rounds before that, man. That was pretty one-sided, that fight. And then he fights Richard Comey, man. Comey coming off that Easter loss. I was high on Comey, especially after the performance he put on against Easter. You know, he could have easily, like, whatever. Maybe he doesn't get stunned in the last round, he wins that shit, you know what I mean? He was on the brink of kind of getting hurt badly in the last round, so that might have been actually without even the knockdown, which was a near knockdown, might have been a 10-8 round. Maybe that swung in favor of Easter, you know? So, Comey going against Shafikov, going to Moscow to fight Shafikov. Whew. You know, I was thinking that was going to be a great fight. And kind of, it was an okay fight, but I was kind of disappointed with Comey's performance. He was a lot on the ropes, but that has also a lot to do with the subtle pressure. Subtle but unrelenting pressure of Shafikov. And it's not totally on the inside the way he fights, you know what I mean? It's almost like he's in mid-range, but he's always like kind of bobbing and weaving, and it's hard to connect on him fully. He rides with punches, you know what I mean? And on the inside he can also fight, but against Comey, man, it seemed like he was more on the mid-range, a little closer than that, but doing work. Having Comey on the ropes, and Comey, he had early success against Shafikov, but he needed a little bit of room to punch Comey, and he wasn't given that room, you know what I mean? It took him a lot of energy running also in that fight, you know? He was so pressured so much, you know what I mean? That at times he had just like to run almost, you know, and that took a little bit of effectiveness, took the effect from his punches, and you know, it was all Shafikov. Maybe it was like an 8-4, 9-3 type of fight, you know? But Shafikov, man, after the Bartholomew fight, he looked very good, you know? Then again, also like Comey losing to Shafikov, man, there's no shame in that, you know what I mean? I believe, like I said, I rate Shafikov. The weird thing is, when he went against Robert Easter, that was a very close fight. I actually have to watch that fight again. Some people whose opinion I'd consider, you know, they thought also Shafikov did a lot better against Robert Easter. I think it wasn't really close on the scorecards, maybe on one scorecard, but it being a lot closer, there's no shame also going against Shafikov and having a close fight, you know what I mean? I don't think of that as like a bad performance by Robert Easter. I remember watching it, but I have to rewatch it again. The thing that kind of takes away from that is that Shafikov gets beaten in his next fight by Rene Alvarado, who's pretty much a very competitive journeyman type fighter, you know. There's these type of fighters out there, especially at that weight class. He got beat by Rocky Juarez a couple of years ago, and then Juarez got knocked out by that other journeyman dude, man. Like, these dudes, once in a while they will sprinkle in some unexpected wins, man. Rene Alvarado's one of these guys, man, at that weight class. The other guy, just his name escapes me right now, excuse me for that one. But Alvarado beat Shafikov, cut him up, man, outboxed him, clinched and smothered him to outpoint him in the end, you know? I believe he even dropped Shafikov, man. He got outboxed Shafikov in that fight. Who knows what's the reason? I guess, like I said, man, some fights just have off performances, but if you're gonna give credit, you know, for the Shafikov win, we have to also mention that Shafikov been taken beaten, you know what I mean? Now we go to the fight where I can say, alright, that's maybe an off night for Easter, you know? That's Fortuna fight. Like, Fortuna, a 2-division world champion. He was a featherweight champion, super featherweight champion. Goes up to lightweight to fight Easter. Doesn't make weight though, which is craziness. First of all, at that weigh-in, fucking Fortuna didn't make weight, man. Still flexing and mean mugging Easter in the face of, you know, doing that cutthroat thing and being all up in Easter's face, you know what I mean? And Easter, man, the way he looks at these weigh-ins, man. Even in the Comey fight, I was thinking to myself, like, it's ridiculous. Like, 6 foot lightweight, but the way he looks just sucked in as a motherfucker, you know? I don't know, I wanted to send him like some clothes and food and shit, you know, charity. But, you know. Anyway, man, yeah, Easter looked sucked at the weighing against Fortuna. Fortuna misses the weight, comes in there, man, and I don't know, maybe I gave Easter too much credit, but I didn't think like Fortuna was gonna do much, you know what I mean, especially going up. But he came in there, spoiled, out-hustled, you know, landed the most significant punches. Easter giving up his height in the fight. That shit was in full effect, man. He didn't look strong physically, you know, looked weak, man. He's kind of getting muscled, even like rushing in, like always like being a parachute over Fortuna, trying to smother him, walking back to ropes and shit, but mistiming. He was too square at times, you know, getting hit with big shots. You know, trying hard, that you can give him, but lacking effectiveness, man. Getting hit with really big punches. Abandoning the jab, you know, wasting energy, falling in square. And unlike in the Comey fight, in which he was showing actually educated in fighting, especially for a tall fighter, and the Fortuna fight, he was sloppy, man. He was intent lacking, you know. His intent lacking engagement into exchanges left him on multiple occasions open, exposed to be countered. At the end of the fight, still the fight wasn't that one-sided, you know, but it was so glaring that Easter was giving up his advantages in the approach he was trying to fight, you know what I mean? But at the end it was still a close fight, and I believe there were multiple points taken also of Fortuna, if I'm not mistaken, who knows, you know, but it had a Fortuna win feel at the end of the fight, but he didn't make weight, so when Easter gets a decision, and he's talking all that shit, Fortuna, I guess Easter is in the right to say, motherfucker, you didn't make weight, so you don't have any arguments, you know what I mean? And after that fight, Fortuna again moves up to 140. Why am I blanking on this boy? The Chicago fighter, man, that fought Adrian Broner and Sean Porter. I'm blanking on the dude, man. Whatever. But he fought that guy, a rough and rugged guy that's more output than anything, you know. Technique goes a little bit out of the window. His conditioning and his output is really what carries the dude. Mexican fighter, man. Young fighter also. Or not young, but still like not an old fighter. Yeah, man, but Fortuna was pretty much like, Fortuna was actually kind of lining this dude out also up with like big punches, man. But it was a rough and scrappy fight, man. Very dirty fight, you know. You gotta say, like, Fortuna is also a head case, man. I've seen him like for years now. He's a head case when he fights. You can tell he's a little out there, you know. What happens? He gets thrown out of the ring somehow in a fucking clinch or whatever. Hurts his head. Looked a little bit like a easy out to me, you know what I mean? I don't know if his head really hit anything like too hard, but you never know, man. Dude was carried out on a stretcher, you know. At the time he was pretty much winning the fight, but also it got very scrappy, man. And as far as physicality, I think that's how you gotta fight that guy Fortuna. Smother him and just work him over, you know what I mean? Fatigue him. I'm going on and on about this fight anyway, you know what I mean? Head case always fall out of the ring. It's no fucking surprise that Bernard Hopkins like has fallen out of the ring like multiple times, you know? Yeah, man, like already said, man, fucking Robert Easter is always, like, even going back to that Richard Comey fight, man, he always looks like on death's door at weigh-ins. I guess it's no excuse for his performance against Fortuna, but it can't be an easy time for a 6-foot lightweight, you know? Especially if he's not like an out-of-competition slab, like his promoter. And now he's fighting Mikey, man, and Mikey, the best Mikey that I've seen is the Mikey that fought Orlando Salido. And before he got his nose broken. Like, the best Mikey, the Mikey on the move, power pot shotting, stopping on a dime, unleashing hydrogen bombs. You know, outmaneuvering with superb, spry, flashy footwork, only to smoothly shift his body weight in a ballowing motion into the oncoming, one-tracked force, accentuating the force of impact, exploiting the opponent's momentum, leaving him unexpected, shocked and concussed. But it doesn't end there. Expect follow-up punches. Man, he looked like a true master for the nose injury and more willing to be creative in the ring. When he went against Roman Martinez, he stabbed Roman Martinez in the 8th round with a body shot. Martinez was giving him trouble. Martinez had success boxing, but Mikey landed a beautiful left hook to the body, man, and stopped Martinez. After being dropped, oh, totally forgot about that, Martinez also dropped Mikey. Then he fights Burgos, the aforementioned Burgos. And Burgos boxed him. And there was a little bit of criticism, especially from the announcers, I believe. Like, they were kind of putting it on notice that Mikey is more of like an intelligent, patient fighter, you know what I mean? That's always like throwing slight shade. But Mikey was and is usually not willing to risk anything, especially if he's winning the rounds. Also, like, ever notice like Mikey Garcia does this little, I don't know if it's amateurish, but he does this little thing, right, where he raises his fist for the judges at the end of the round. I believe it's tactical, you know. That's him, right? He's tactical, well thought out. It's almost like it's more of a game. He's calculated, more than a fight. Very Mayweather-esque in his mindset, I believe. And I believe Mayweather is his idol. While he's defensively not on the level of Mayweather, Mikey's got his own great defense. What he does is he picks and parries punches. Check out Robert Garcia, man. There's this video where he spars like the young brash fight a couple of years ago. He gets called out by one of his fighters. There's this sequence where like this kid throws like a 3-punch combo or something, and Garcia parries these punches beautifully, you know what I mean? That's obviously something they learned under their dad. Anyway, the big layoff, you know, contract disputes with Top Rank, trying to get out of his contract, you know, being independent, now returning against Jesus Rojas 2 years ago. Was he a former world champion? I believe so. I believe he beat up Jorge Arce a couple of years ago. I've seen that fight, man. Anyway, yeah, Rojas, you know, he himself is probably a naturally smaller guy. You know, he was a champion at a lower weight class. Both these fighters were champions in the same weight class at the same time. But there is probably a case to be made that Mikey is more natural at their current weight class that he's fighting at, you know what I mean? 135, 140. He's probably a lot stronger at those weight classes than he was when he was rather dehydrated, you know? Training himself to fight at those lower weights. Anyway, Rojas, you know, is a taller, kind of unconventional fighter. A little bit of loopy punches, maybe even a bit out of his prime, very inactive himself, you know. That Mikey Garcia was probably a more offensively minded Garcia, you know. He was kind of taking a couple of shots early by Rojas, but it's almost like he saw something in Rojas, you know. Rojas didn't come to win. In the 5th round, he pretty much just quit after getting dropped a couple of times, but I don't know if he necessarily was concussed. He just, like Paulo Malignaggi was talking about, that the weight difference and him being a smaller guy naturally had something to do with it. I don't know. I didn't see a competitive effort by Rojas, you know, so you couldn't really tell much from that fight. It was a comeback fight for Mikey Garcia. In his next fight, though, he fights Dejan Zlaticanin, WBC lightweight champion, who himself like won that title, and I believe the title was vacant and he picked it up, beating some unbeknownst dude. Dejan Zlaticanin is a good tough fighter, you know. In the past he has beaten Peter Petrov. He beat him by unanimous decision. He also went to Scotland and beat Ricky Burns, you know what I mean? Beat a couple of journeymen, Eric Bonet, Ivan Radkach once again, you know. And Mikey Garcia, man, goes in there against the champion, masterfully outboxes him and studies him for the 1st and 2nd round, and then goes into the 3rd round and viciously knocks out Zlaticanin. And Zlaticanin after that He has gone on to be TKO'd in his last fight. Case of soul snatched. Is it a case of soul snatched? I don't know, man, but you gotta mention it, right? Get stopped. It's like teaching him. Yeah, man, and then Mikey fights Broner. Obviously, that's a little bit of a money fight there. Broner hasn't been a competitive force, you know what I mean? He's been able to pick up one or the other title Broner has, you know, since getting his ass beaten in by Marcus Maidana, man. But even before that, against Paulie Malignaggi, a little bit of that Antonio DeMarco flair had already kind of worn off, you know. So Broner fighting Mikey Garcia. I mean, if you go into the black gym, everybody's gonna tell you, oh yeah, Broner's got the talent, man. Broner this time takes it serious, you know what I mean? If Broner takes it serious, all that good stuff, you know what I mean? I don't think Mikey Garcia gets enough credit for his ability, his style, you know? I think he's one of those Mexican dudes, man, that come in with that lean body, you know, no muscle tone and shit, Eric Morales-esque, but they just got that it shit, you know what I mean? That it factor, you know? These dudes fight like black dudes. Eric Morales, Mikey Garcia, you know, they got that rhythm. You can put a beat under it, you know? Not every fighter is like that. But enough of that borderline racist shit. Broner came into that fight coming down in weight, you know, 140. Although only a couple of years ago he was a champion at that weight after got that win over some Eastern European dude. And I always kind of wonder when that happens, man. I wondered when Jesus Cuellar came in light against Abner Mares. I wondered when Keith Thurman came in light against Sean Porter. Like, Broner came in after not making that weight and always having trouble with that weight. He came in over a pound under the weight. Maybe that's a case of overtraining. You know, a little lack of activity, a little lack of energy. And that showed in the fight. There was no activity, you know, he got dominated over the 12-round distance. Couple of sporadic bursts that showed Mikey, you know, don't like it to the body, and inside work is something he'll avoid with clinches and smothering his opponent, trying to force breaks. You know, he's more defense-minded when on the inside. Stiff jabs and solid right hands at Broner, keeping his hands home. And he was mostly on the retreat, you know, in what I would call the you can't hit me mode, you know. It's the false bravado of a fighter who's, when met with the chance to define himself in his and everybody else's minds or eyes, when met with that challenge, you know, to meet adversity head on and attempt to valiantly overcome. He'll instead hold on to the remaining thread of ego, which is above embarrassment, which will allow him to, after the fight, call himself a competitor instead of a victim. Too scared to find out who he really is, comfortably fronting. Once again, seeing the potential but wanting so much more, seeing potential unfulfilled is unbecoming. It's different from being hated for winning. Broner's a special case of self-sabotage, and when you see him fight, it's a reflection of the guy who we see perform. He's up and down, because constantly a black hole is pulling him in. He seems teased by the notion of being a disappointment. It's like he's feeding on negativity, actively seeking out the best way to self-sabotage. What better way of keeping people guessing on your ceiling is not even trying? Showing up but not really trying. Good enough to hang, not gritty enough to win. So Mikey fights Sergey Lipinets after winning a conclusive decision against Adrian Broner. Lipinets, the newly crowned, won a vacant title, the IBF title, against an Asian fighter. And a tough fight, actually. Lipinets didn't have an easy time. And only a 13-0 fighter, already a world champion. Good fighter, newly champ, like I said. Won that IBF title after Terence Crawford moved up to welterweight, but never been in the ring with a Mikey Garcia, right? I mean, he held his own against Mikey. He was able to land good punches on Mikey, you know. But Mikey dropped him in the 7th round, and all throughout was boxing very patiently, and he boxed carefully, I'd say that. Also dealing with a naturally bigger man, now junior welterweight, 4 weight division champion. Mikey has been mentioning that he's feeling the weight increase, you know. He's feeling that he's fighting bigger man and it's not as easy, so he has to be patient. It's understandable, you know what I mean. The man knows himself best, you know. Now, thinking of this Easter fight, man, I mean, the size is a big difference, man, as you can see in this picture, right? Is Mikey going to fight in the pocket? That's what I want to see. That's the intrigue for me, you know, because we always see Mikey somewhat comfortably boxing, right? Will just the size, and I believe at the press conference they were constantly like talking about the size difference and almost like trying to sell the fight just on his size only. Like there's no quality to what Robert Easter does, right? So will it be that much of a factor? Will it be able to change Mikey Garcia? Mikey Garcia is one of these fighters that always thinks of himself like he has more to come. The ceiling hasn't been reached and he needs the right opponent to make him a better fighter. So is he gonna fight in the pocket, man? I think that's a little bit of his deficiencies, you know, in fighting. So I'm gonna be very interested, and I'm sure in the gym we see much more of that. And I think Mikey Garcia, like I said, man, there is a little bit more creativity when I've seen him fight Salido early in his career, you know. I think he just is wise enough to not show something if it's not needed, you know. Maybe at some point creativity is needed in a situation where it's either that or you get your ass beat, you know what I mean? So is Mikey gonna step out of his comfort zone? Overcoming that 8-inch reach advantage by Easter? Will he invest into body work, which we've seen a little bit of in the Broner fight? Maybe not enough. Which he self-admittedly has been underusing, you know. Obviously, like I said, man, exceptions are the Broner-Martinez fight maybe. You know, he stopped Martinez with that body shot. Or will he rely on his boxing savvy, man? Although the shorter man, will he control the fight, fighting out ring center, pushing Easter to use the ring? More than Easter being in his own comfort zone and boxing comfortably on the outside. Will he push him to make mistakes retreating and fighting long? Will Easter fight more out of necessity than game plan? Will he be forcing Easter to be overreactive, similar to the Broner fight? Will he use his good feints? Will he use that good jab? And Mikey, man, with his exceptional timing and his great knack for catching his opponents while opening up, that should spell trouble, even with Easter fighting smart and according to the game plan. But when Easter reverts back to giving up his height, and if we can expect that, you know what I mean? Maybe we can expect that, but if Easter reverts back to giving up his height, leaning over his front foot and kind of exposing himself to what I like to call kill shots, be sure Mikey will take advantage. I believe both fighters have the power to hurt each other. I believe Easter to be the more proven and experienced lightweight. He comes in with physical advantages that should help him, you know. I do not see Easter being able to box with Mikey, and the more it doesn't play out in his favor, I feel like he'll revert back and maybe he'll try to be physical with Mikey, which wouldn't be a bad idea. I believe that's an aspect Mikey isn't tested in yet, you know, making it rough a la Paul Williams versus Sergio Martinez. That would be advised. Maybe can stifle and tire Mikey with output as well as his natural size advantage. I believe Easter has a good chin. Mikey's chin isn't impervious to getting cracked. But still I favor Mikey, you know, to win convincingly, whether it's a second half to late TKO or a clear decision, you know. I don't think Robert Easter can box with Mikey, and all in all I feel it's a very good matchup on Saturday night for the lightweight supremacy, and I can't wait. Alright, thanks for listening. Peace out.